At the Kem C Gardner Policy Institute, we work with gigabytes of data every week. And when this data comes across our screens and our desks, we start to see things. We start to know when there's major shifts, when the ground is changing below our feet. And beginning before the pandemic and in the years that have followed, we've seen something we call the new Utah. The new Utah includes 6 economic and demographic transitions that change who we are. Taken together, they represent an amazing opportunity for our state. As we wrote about and analyzed the new Utah, we became fond of the phrase, keepers of the flame. The flame represents everything that's great about Utah and the light that we project to the world. It's our responsibility as keepers of the flame to keep what we value about Utah and also rise to the challenges that the new Utah presents. The first transition is Utah's rise from a small state to a mid-sized state. From 2010 to 2020, Utah leapfrogged 4 states to become a mid-sized state for the first time in our history. A mid-sized state benefits from a lot of opportunities that a small state just can't provide. It might be more restaurants, certainly greater job opportunities, more businesses. It also means that Major League sports teams will find Utah attractive. The second transition is our emergence as a state that attracts most of our growth from the outside, net in-migration, which means that we have more people moving into our state than we have new births from residents. For a good part of our history, the majority of our growth has come from ourselves, births. Our fertility rate, which is really just a measure of births per woman, has been declining for 14 consecutive years. The third transition is something that's been simmering for a long time. We're getting older. This is happening all around the country, but it's also happening in Utah. As we get older, it changes our housing preferences, our transportation choices. It even changes the structure of our economy as more people consume healthcare. It's a big deal to get older as a population. The fourth transition is that Utah's become much more multicultural. I think it would surprise a lot of people to know just how racially and ethnically diverse Utah is. It wasn't but a few years ago that 1 in 10 Utahns were a racial and ethnic minority. Today that number is about 1 in 4. This not only surprises people, but it's a wonderful attribute about our state. The fifth transition is that Utah's economy is now performing at an elite level. We've always had a strong economy, but for the last 10 years, we've been among the top performing states consistently. And this durable economy, even during the pandemic, makes it so that we are now in a position to do things that a prosperous economy allows. We can invest in transportation, in water infrastructure, in education. I like to say that a prosperous economy helps us right now, and it also helps us in the future as we invest in our children and grandchildren. As our state grows, it's also getting more expensive to live here. That leads us to the 6th transition, which is an unaffordable housing market. This is a real problem for young Utahns who want to enter into the housing market but can't afford a home. This compromises their wealth for the rest of their lives. That's going to take amazing focus, and we still have a lot to do. At the Gardner Institute, we shed light, not heat. But many decision makers have asked us, how should they lead in the new Utah? We recommend that decision makers keep an open mind. If you felt very strongly about something a few years ago, you might want to think again in the new Utah. We also encourage decision makers to listen more. In the new Utah, there's a lot more voices. We also encourage decision makers to invest even more. We've been investing at historical levels, but with all this growth and change, we need to invest even more. We're also encouraging that decision makers invest in the things we do together. We live in a divided world. The more that we do together, I think will help us in the new Utah. And finally, we encourage Utahns to unify and dignify. We can have differences over ideas, but we need to unify around our ideals. That's the spirit of the new Utah. We, as Utahns, are keepers of the flame. The flame is everything that we love about our state and the light that we project to the world. It's now our challenge and indeed our responsibility to keep that flame burning bright.